Happy Friday, everybody. Good morning, Cochrane. Hope everybody's having a great day. I'm thrilled to be live this morning with a dear friend of mine, so I'm going to wait till she hops on here. But hey, we have some sunshine. We're getting ready to have a great weekend here with lots of sunshine, lots of ways to maybe track some points for our community challenge. So we're gonna talk about that. Karen Dommett from the Calgary Adapted Hub. Sorry, I'm just doing that. Oh, we're facing different ways here. I'm gonna flip here. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning.
Oh, there we go. So before we get into this, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm really excited because Karen and I are friends. So this is like coffee chat with Ash and Karen in this morning.
Yeah.
But in the
A rare occurrence without kids, though.
Yeah.
We need to do this more often during working hours.
Exactly. We won't be providing snacks or water bottles during our Instagram live this morning, but we are both excited to be here. My name is Ashley Fox, and I'm a proud board member of the Sport for Life Cochrane Group. And Karen is joining us today with many hats: as a mom, as an active person herself, as part of the Calgary Adapted Hub, but also as somebody who has a plethora of experience in sport and recreation. And I think, as the energy is building here with this Participation Community Better Challenge, we know we're picking from, all different pockets and facets of our lives and wearing all these hats. So I'm excited to dive in. Karen and I have lots of stuff we'd like to cover this morning. Thank you, everybody that's for joining us. But I'm going to kick it right off just by asking Karen to tell us a little bit about herself, not only from a professional sense, but as a Cochraneite.
Yeah. Well, I'd first like to start by acknowledging the land that we're both able to join from. So in the spirit of reconciliation, I'd like to acknowledge that we get to live, work, and play and raise our beautiful babies here on the traditional lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy of the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, and the Stoney Nakoda nations. And the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who get to make their homes in the Treaty 7 region here in southern Alberta. So we are so fortunate to be here in this beautiful setting, just right outside of the Rocky Mountains here in Cochrane. So about me, I've lived here. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary of being Cochranites. So yeah, it's been a year since we relocated here from Olds, Alberta. And we couldn't be happier with the move. It's just such a phenomenal community. We're situated down in Glenbow, and so we back right onto the Big Hill Springs Creek and have access to all the beautiful trails. And I think we were counting the other day, so my kids are 5 and 2, and with their capacity, I think we can bike to 7 different playgrounds for a picnic or anything. So, I mean, in Olds, I don't think we had 7 playgrounds total. So we continually are just so grateful and fortunate for everything that Cochrane has to offer for an active family.
Karen, what do you like to do to be active?
Well, as you know, we try to meet up on a weekly basis, typically to get outside and go for a mom's evening run or stairs up to the Mount of Vision, the Malcolm Mackenzie statue. As we like to joke with our 5-year-old, we told him when we first moved here that it was a Tom Cochrane statue. He has since learned the name of Malcolm Mackenzie, though, so he doesn't embarrass himself. But yeah, just taking in, the trails here. We've got a pretty decent garage set up ourselves of, a rower and weights and things like that. So my husband and I like to dabble in that as well. But yeah, my background in sport is I grew up in rural Saskatchewan and didn't have a plethora of options. So I kind of unlikely found myself in the sport of boxing. Was the sport I did growing up because that was what was available to us. So despite all the concussions that I received as a youth through that sport, I was able to go on to university and get my Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology and major in entrepreneurial business, which was kind of a makeshift sports administration degree, and have gone on to work in sport and recreation ever since. So finding myself exposed to a number of different sports and activities. But yeah, being out here, we just like to take in the outdoors and pop out to the mountains to go snowboarding and hiking whenever we can, and push our little guys to see how far their little legs can take them on some of the trails.
No, that's awesome. Well, I'll speak for everybody, but certainly for us that we're so glad you made the move. And that you've been able to find the things that that fit with for your family, right? I think that's our hope for everybody in town, is that with all of the great opportunities there are to be active, that everybody finds something that they love. So all those examples will hopefully get people out. Maybe they can see how many playgrounds they can hit this weekend as well.
Right? Yeah, playground hopping in Cochrane is one of the best activities you can do, I
Yeah.
think.
So Karen, one of there's a lot of things that hopefully we can touch on today with some of that experience that you have, as well as what one of the things we're talking about today is the Participation Community Better Challenge, which we'll get into in a little bit. For those of you that are just joining us, I'm joined this morning by Karen Dommett from the Calgary Adapted Hub. Karen is a local Cochranite, but doing work that serves Calgary and area. And so maybe that's where we're going to head next this morning, is if you can just tell us a little bit about the great initiative project organization that has become the Calgary Adapted Hub, and what you do.
Yeah, so the Calgary Adapted Hub we're powered by Jumpstart. It's a collective, it's a group of 7 Calgary-based partners that came together to create this partnership with the whole vision of getting more kids more active more often, regardless of ability. So we are so fortunate to be in a sports city, in an Olympic city, but we're not a Paralympic city. We have so many wonderful opportunities, and there's a long history of some really, really great disability-specific activities, but there's also a lot of gaps. And so what these partners did was come together to say, hey, how can we come up with more programming, and how can we do better to complement the programs that already exist? So, we have wonderful Special Olympics programming. We have the Autism and Asperger Friendship Society, and lots of different parasport groups, and lots of different disability servicing agencies who do lots of amazing recreation programming. But how can our typical mainstream type recreation facilities and programs, how can they become more inclusive? So our partners are the City of Calgary Recreation, Sport Calgary, Vivo for Healthier Generations, Repsol Sports Center, WinSport, Mount Royal University, and the University of Calgary. So lots of those partners already have some really great adapted programming, or inclusive programming. And now what we're just looking to do is look to improve those programs and add more offerings, because we want to really see a Calgary and surrounding area that has a full pathway for participation. Because right now we have lots of really cool try it programs, and then we have some Paralympic pathways of some really high performance programming and options. But then there's some gaps in the middle, and then there's some gaps based on disability sector as well, right? So there's some really cool parasport programs, but maybe not a ton of programs for someone who maybe has an intellectual impairment or sensory difficulties. So what we're doing is really exploring those gap areas. So there's my position as the program manager, who kind of oversees the coordination and collaboration, and supporting our sport leaders and our programmers on ensuring they have the right education and training and support and resources so that they're confident and comfortable and motivated to deliver that type of programming. Because let's be honest, it is intimidating. If you didn't grow up with someone in your family with a disability, or you don't have a close friend who maybe experienced a spinal cord injury, or if it's not within your core and you're not exposed to it, it can be intimidating to get into. And that's a fair and valid feeling. So that's what we're here to do, is help support and kind of break down those barriers, and really show that it's as complex as it is simple. There's a lot to think about, but it's just people. It's people first, right? And everybody deserves access to sport and recreation. So that's a lot of the work we're doing with our partners. And then we also have a 0.5 position, which is a knowledge translation and research coordinator. So that's in partnership with the University of Calgary. So we have evaluation and research built into everything that we're doing. So all of our programs are really evaluating, getting feedback from the participants and finding out what are those gaps. So what we're doing is not speaking for the community, we're speaking with the community and using the voices of the lived experience to educate our sport leaders, to really drive where programs going to go in the future of adapted sport and recreation in our cities. So We have a really wonderful community advisory committee that's built up of a really diverse background of individuals at different stages of life and experiences with various disabilities that help guide us in a lot of the early work that we're doing. So we've only been in existence since October. So it's still quite early on and a really strange time to do all this during
Mm-hmm.
the pandemic, right, when we haven't had programming. But what we've been able to do then is like peel back and really look at that, like that education piece and how we're supporting our leaders and really looking at, you know, what is it to be truly inclusive and to be really welcoming so that it's not just these niche things and that people do see themselves as, regardless of my ability, I can go to WinSport. I can take in a program at Repsol. I'm not limited to just what is offered at a disability servicing agency. I can do both. So that's really the goal. And then on the other side of supporting our partners and our leaders, we also are there as I mentioned, people first always. So we just launched our website 2 weeks ago today. So through there, there's a portal that families can fill out a really simple, quick, easy form, but we're there to help support that pathway for families too. So what we found really early on is there's a lot of folks that feel like they're kind of in this gray zone where, you know, my son has cerebral palsy, but he has good mobility. He struggles with balance, but you know, he's played soccer with his siblings and he can keep up, but he can't quite keep up with his able-bodied peers in a traditional soccer program. But he wants to use the mobility and ability that he does have, and you know, the parasport program isn't like quite like that, feels limiting for him. So where do we fit? And that's where we come into play, is that it's, as the parent, you shouldn't be tasked to have to research and email every single club out there to find out who's willing to accept and take on my child and learn about them, you know, because it feels, that's what it feels like, right? It's like, hey, we're a little bit different. Well, can we come? Is that okay? Is it going to be safe? Do you know what you're doing? Or, you know, and that's what we're here to help support, is like, we're the ones that can listen to that and get to know you and get to know your family and be that middleman and really help out both the families feel safe and secure, and then connect them with the right organizations and the right sport leaders who do have that comfort and awareness and education, and who are willing to put in that time to get to know you so that you feel safe. And you know, it's a lot of trial and error to find the right fit, right?
Yeah.
And it's trial and error for the sport leaders to make sure that they're getting it right. So it's just really fostering that relationship between the two.
Wow. And when you list those partners, what a great opportunity to come together as a collective so that the experience for each of these families can be positive and different, you know, no matter where they're going, right? Because I think, you know, Calgary is a big city. Cochrane itself is growing. It's a lot to navigate for sure. So what a gift to have this collective supporting this work. For those of you, I see a couple more people have just jumped on. Karen Domit's with us this morning talking about the Calgary Adapted Hub. And she just gave us a bit of a background of what the last year has been like getting the collective into existence, which is incredible work, especially during a pandemic, but incredible work nonetheless. And, you know, it'd be really interesting to hear from each of the partners what their kind of highlight has been. But maybe what's been the kind of the greatest part being a part of this work over the last 10 months for you?
Yeah. What's really cool is that, so we came into this with like this really polished plan of, you know, getting Jumpstart on board to support this initiative of like, here's our 5 core program partners and here's the programs they already do that are adapted or inclusive. And we just think we could do better with them. So we want to use these to implement some evaluation and research and really network in the community and, you know, use this as an opportunity to collect the feedback and insight from the community that'll help drive where we go in the future of how we can help develop more pathways and complementary programming to what already exists. But we couldn't do that. Those 5 core programs that were within our partnership, they couldn't run. So we've gotten really creative. And when we said we weren't going to do any new programming or develop anything new in year 1, it's forced us to to actually step out of that comfort zone and, you know, to overuse the term pivot, adapt, whatever you want to say, to, you know, really evaluate like what does inclusive and adapted and fully accessible virtual programming look like? What all goes into that? So we've dabbled a little bit into that. What does return to play look like? What does it look like to build back better in all of our programming, not just what was originally intended as adapted or inclusive programming? How can everything be more welcoming and inclusive, so that, you know, it's not just the folks that already know or the people that are returning, or that my family has a history of participating in this sport, so that's what we do. It's bringing in those people that haven't originally been exposed to those sports, and just overall inclusive and welcoming improvements, I'd say. So yeah, lots of really exciting things when things are allowed to fully open up or become implemented, because there's going to be a little bit of that lag, right? So we're going to see things kind of these next few weeks really open back up of things that were already in existence. But what's going to take a little bit of time is implementing all these really new ideas that we've been able to work on over the last little bit. So we're going to see some really exciting stuff come out, I'd say later this fall and this winter, in that inclusive and adapted sector. So yeah, really excited about that. And we've been able to do some really cool initiatives with training and supporting our sport leaders, to just overall increase that knowledge and awareness and comfortability.
Oh, that's so great. And, you know, one of the ongoing conversations we're having locally is how do we support the parents, the coaches, the leaders, and then the athletes themselves, to rebuild some of the confidence and sense of belonging and some of those things that may have been lost over the last 16 months. And so I can only imagine that if a family has a person that has an additional need, that they are also seeking a program that's going to be inclusive the whole way along, right? Like if they're coming back to something, they're going to want that support from day one.
Right. I think that's what's so interesting about, you know, I tuned into yesterday. Leah was interviewing Kevin Webster from Kids Sport,
Yes.
and they were talking about how the survey that you guys did showed that, you know, people actually didn't really see that big of a drop in activity levels and recreation, right? Because we are set up as such an active community that we have access to all these things that without structured sport, we're still able to find ways to be active. And I think we're all really missing that. We really want sport to come back, and we're all really excited about what's coming up right now. But, you know, retention is going to be really hard for some of these clubs, and recruitment is going to be really, really, really big, because there might be people that might not come back because they've found other ways to be active or whatever. A lot of personal situations have happened during COVID, right, that may not allow you or afford you to go back to that sport or that activity that you were maybe doing before. So recruitment is going to be a huge thing. And I think the basis of inclusion and welcoming and awareness of anyone who could show up at your door is going to be really, really important. That you know, a family that has a child that has a disability, their needs aren't special. It's the same as everyone else. You know, I relate it to just our family that my husband and I are both farm kids from Saskatchewan who, like, if we got to ride our bikes on pavement, like that was like the highlight of the year, you know, like pretty exciting time. So the fact that we're raising our kids here that like get to go to the pump track, the launch pad, and the skate park, and our oldest is just getting into the BMX racing club here. And, you know, it was really, really intimidating. We tried to do some of the drop-ins last year, and like, it was so scary. Like, we have no idea what to do, let alone like this small child that we're like, yeah, be brave, just go do it, it'll be fine. But like, we're sweating bullets and like so scared of like, do we have the right bike? Is this like, oh gosh, like we're gonna look not cool, like everyone's gonna judge us. Versus this year, the time and effort that the BMX club here in Cochrane has put into making new families feel secure and welcome, and hosting a new parent Zoom information night, and doing the introductory camps where it's just the little guys on the track with a coach and nobody else around, and it's not open track night. How much more comfortable we feel as a family, and that makes us want to then get a full membership and get really involved in that sport. That's not a unique need.
No,
That is
no.
a
No.
universal, we just want to know what to expect. How do we do it? What do I need to know? What's the right equipment? What's the commitment? What are the safety things? What, like, where do I show up? Where's my kids stand? What's the right thing to do? What's the wrong thing to do? Like, that is a universal, like, we all just want to feel like we're welcome, we're belong. Um, and that we just need a little bit of that care and guidance with as a new family to a sport. Um, and I think having that empathetic view of like, what is it like for new people to come to get involved in my activity, people that we haven't reached before, um, and then thinking, putting yourself in those shoes of like, okay, and now what if there is a disability? What if somebody has a mobility restriction? What if somebody has a sensory impairment or an intellectual impairment or a family member that has that? Where can they park? Where can they? And it's as simple as just like an FAQ sheet that then maybe has like a line about accessible parking or accessible equipment rentals. And you know, that's not to say that every sport needs to be expected to be fully inclusive and adapted and have a para sport division and have an autism friendly division and you know, that's not going to be the reality of the capacity of all our clubs, but maybe just a little bit of care and consideration of what if a member of a family has a mobility impairment? What if, you know, it's as simple as talking about parking, seating, what resources exist, what exists within your PSO, your NSO as a resource for a parasport division, or where's a group that you could get connected to if you have participants with a disability. So, like I said, it's as simple as it is complex, right?
Yeah, and that's something for us all to take away. And again, I think this is our current reality is kind of that reopening or that energy. But I think for all, like always, is that is to not minimize some of the social and emotional side of things that will help build our organizations to be stronger, but also to create that sense of belonging and the opportunity for long-term involvement for people, for not only the parent, the child, but the coaches and everyone involved, for sure. So, Karen, one of the things you know about, but we'll hope that maybe some of the people joining us are maybe just getting attuned to today, is that Cochrane has taken on the Participation Community Better Challenge. So I think one of the things I've loved about talking about this for the last little bit is people's recollection or memory of participation. So most people still are hanging on to maybe the Hal and Joanne days.
Yes.
But Participation is a national organization encouraging people to use physical activity to drive community, social health, physical health, mental health, all the rest. And so when we were unable in Cochrane to offer those triad or exposure type events this June, we knew that this challenge was a way that we could unite the community and use a community engagement tool like this challenge to hopefully see people engage in activity, maybe in some new ways, or at least maybe a little bit of a motivator to get out and get active. The other thing is, though, is there's $100,000 on the line as we hope to be crowned the most active community in Canada. So maybe just as we wind down here, both for your family, certainly thinking about the work that's happened in this collective over the last 10 months, what would $100,000 do for the Cochrane community when it comes to inclusive, adaptive, and really quality programming?
Yeah, well, we talked about how we're so rich in trails and playgrounds here, right? So for a young family, it's amazing. But, you know, when we stop and reflect, we're not rich in super accessible options.
Mm-hmm.
So we're super fortunate that we do have an inclusive playground. We have the Variety Village playground on the 1A there at the outdoor rink, which is arguably the best playground in Cochrane,
Yeah.
right? Like we refer to it as the trampoline park in our house because it's the best with those trampolines in the ground. I've never seen that before. Um, but I think, yeah, where there's such a huge opportunity with that type of funding and resources, that if Cochrane was able to be crowned is, you know, look around at our playgrounds. There's only that one with the rubber matting that I'm aware of. Maybe there's more, but certainly not close to here in Glenbow. That, you know, we don't have yeah, how much of our public resources are fully accessible. And, the debate always comes up when we're talking about public dollars and public funding like that. It's, well, how many people does it really affect? How many folks in our community do we really have with a mobility impairment? And A, it's more than you think. And B, that's the
Mm,
beauty of inclusion, is that it is for everybody. Like, my kids don't have a mobility impairment, but that's still our favorite park. It's the coolest park here. Like, inclusion is for everyone. It's not segregated to a specific community, where some of our traditional type facilities and infrastructures are segregated to only those who have the ability to use them. So I think there's just such an opportunity for us to do better, that we have so much to be grateful and thankful here with the Spray Lakes and the launch pad and the riverfront. And like, we have so much here, and I'm continually so grateful. But I would love to see us be able to win this challenge, and be able to invest in making some things better for everybody in this wonderful community. And I think a plug for those to get more involved in the challenge and track more minutes and help us get that $100,000. Within our partners, you can go check us out at it's www.calgaryadaptedhub.com and look through our programs. So partners has listed for, oh, sorry, I
I'm
froze
back.
there.
I just, you were giving the website, www.calgaryadaptedhub.com.
.com.
.com.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can check out all the programs on our website through our 7 partners. So I think it might have been yesterday, the University of Calgary opened up registration for summer camp. They have an adapted summer camp that you can register for. We're going to have, I can't say from who or when, where, but it's in the works. There will be a virtual adapted camp coming up shortly too. We have Vivo for Healthier Generations is doing some really cool loose play kits too. And I'll give a plug for a local group here, Amp to Play. Also has the loose parts play kits, and any sport leaders here locally to go check out Amp to Play, because they will help you on that inclusion journey as well, of kind of that support and questions to ask. And of course, we're always here with the Calgary Adapted Hub too, but then outside of our 7 partners, there's lots of great options. So I saw Bowhead Cycles had popped on at one point. I don't know if they're still here, but Bowhead Cycles is a group that makes really cool adapted bikes. There's Rocky Mountain Adaptive in Canmore, so just down the road from us. Ultimate Parasports Alberta, Wheelchair Sports Alberta. Adaptable Outdoors is a new organization out of Pincher Creek that does lots of like on water stuff. And then, yeah, go to Sport Calgary's website too. There's a whole section there too of like, all the different sports that happen out at the Glenmore Reservoir. They all have adapted sailing programs and things like that too. So there are options out there. It's, finding the right information is what can be tricky, and that's what we're here to help with the Calgary Adapted Hub. So I see a comment of trouble finding ice in Cochrane, for sure. Yeah, and like that would be a great opportunity, right? Is how do we make our outdoor public ice surfaces in the winter more inclusive and accessible? Would we be able to help leverage some of those dollars to help Spray Lakes, become more accessible, right? Because nobody's ever going to say that this is a bad idea, right? It's
No.
just getting access to the right resources to make it happen.
Yeah, and I think just what you've said totally resonates, is that inclusion benefits all of us. And so it has to be on every agenda. It has to be at the top of our priorities. Or sadly it sometimes gets missed.
Right. And it's a powerful statement to make, but access to physical activity and sport is a human right, not a privilege.
Yes.
It is a human right. And we know better as a society now, right? We know better, so we need to start doing better, and investing properly.
Yeah. So for those of you who haven't already done so, please download the Participation app, join the challenge here in Cochrane, and do just log your minutes. Encourage your neighbors, encourage your friends, get everybody thinking about what moving their body does for them, whether it's their own mental health, whether it's that they get to experience something new in nature, they get to have some positive social engagement safely outdoors right now. Regardless of what it is, I think everybody could use a little nudge to maybe track those minutes, be inspired to try something new. If you follow us at Sport for Life Cochrane on Instagram or Facebook, people have been sharing what they love to do in Cochrane. So maybe some new ideas there. And Karen, this is maybe the first conversation we've had using your expertise this morning, but certainly won't be the last. We've been really fortunate to have David and Julie Legg in our community continue to coach us and mentor us as to what we can do to be more inclusive. But accessible and inclusive programs are definitely something that would be considered when it comes to that $100,000. But I think maybe by working together locally, we can do better overall.
Absolutely.
Sure. So,
yeah. And look at the forecast this weekend. Like, we don't have any excuse of like, after this weekend, we need to be jumping way up in those rankings. Like, now's our time, Cochrane.
About number 15, so we need to keep climbing.
Yeah.
You can find Karen as well. She mentioned her website, but you can find them at YYC Adapted Hub on Instagram. And I know Karen personally will get back to you with, we saw today maybe some interesting needs in the community, but also if people have ideas or maybe some volunteer capacity as well. We know it takes a village. So reach out if that fits for you. Join the challenge. The community will be better. We know that this makes the community better. And so thank you, Karen, so much for joining this morning. We will continue this dialogue with the Cochrane Sport Network as well, to ensure we're doing the best for all members of our community.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for this opportunity. And download the app.
Download the app. Track your minutes. Take 10. Do whatever you can. All right, Cochrane, the most active community in Canada. Thank you. Karen Dommett from the Calgary Adapted Hub. To be continued.
You bet. Okay. Thanks, Ash.
Thanks, Karen. Bye.